Hey there, and welcome back to the Simple AI Guide, where we take the complicated world of artificial intelligence and explain it in plain English. My name is Hope. Today we are discussing something that I know a lot of you are curious about: artificial intelligence and mental health. What can AI do to help people who are struggling emotionally or psychologically? What should you watch out for? Where does AI end and real human care begin? And what does this all mean for you? Whether you are dealing with your own mental health, supporting someone you love, or just curious about where this technology is headed, we are going to cover all of it today, in plain English, no jargon, no hype, just honest and practical information you can use. So let us start with a number that I think really sets the stage for this whole conversation. Nearly 60 million Americans are living with a mental illness right now. That is roughly 1 in 5 people walking around in this country. And here's the part that should give all of us pause. Nearly half of those 60 million people receive no treatment at all, not because they are choosing to suffer, not because they do not want help. Often it is because care is too expensive, or there simply are not enough providers in their area, or the wait times are so long that by the time an appointment is available, the immediate moment of crisis has passed. In some parts of the country, you might wait months to see a therapist. In rural areas, the nearest psychiatrist might be an hour and a half away. That access problem is very real, and it is one of the main reasons artificial intelligence has entered the mental health space in such a big way. AI is not going to solve all of that overnight, but it may be able to help fill certain gaps. And understanding what those gaps are and where AI can and cannot help is exactly what this episode is about. Let us start with what AI is doing in mental health today. One of the areas where AI has gotten the most traction is cognitive behavioral therapy, which most people know by the abbreviation CBT. If you have ever worked with a therapist, there is a reasonable chance CBT was part of your work together. It is one of the most well-researched approaches we have for depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress, eating disorders, and a whole range of other conditions. The basic idea is that our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are all connected. And if you can learn to identify unhelpful patterns in your thinking, you can start to shift them. CBT is structured. It involves specific exercises, worksheets, skill practices, and homework. Because CBT is so structured, because it follows predictable steps, it turns out to be a good candidate for being delivered, at least in part, through digital tools and apps. An AI-powered app can walk you through a thought record. It can help you challenge a distorted belief. It can remind you to practice a coping skill. It can guide you through a grounding exercise at 2 in the morning when no therapist is available. And that availability piece is one of the clearest strengths of AI in this whole conversation. Think about it this way. Mental health struggles do not follow a schedule. A rough night does not wait for office hours. A panic attack does not come at a convenient time. An intrusive thought does not check your calendar first. For a lot of people, the moment they need support the most is exactly the moment when nothing is available. When it is late at night, or a weekend, or they are traveling, or they are in a waiting period before their first appointment. AI can be there in those moments, not as a replacement for professional care, but as a presence, something that offers structure and coping prompts, and a little bit of connection when a person needs it. Now, I want to be careful here, because I do not want to oversell this. These tools are support tools. They are not full treatment. They are best thought of as a bridge, something to lean on while you're waiting for care, something to practice with between therapy sessions, or something to help you feel a little less alone during a hard moment. They are not the same as working with a trained human therapist, and I am going to come back to that distinction in detail because it is the most important point in this whole episode. But first, let us talk about what is available now. I know a lot of you want to know which specific apps or tools are worth your time, and which ones you should be skeptical about. We'll also talk about the privacy of your information. One of the best-known names in this space is an app called Woebot. Woebot has been around for a few years now and is one of the better-studied AI mental health apps, which is more than you can say for a lot of products in this market. It uses CBT-based exercises and conversational prompts to help users check in with how they are feeling, reflect on their thoughts, and practice coping techniques. The experience is a bit like having a very structured patient journal that talks back to you. Woebot has been studied for use in areas like depression, anxiety, and substance use support. The research results have been promising in some cases, though it is worth noting that the evidence base is still developing, and early studies often have limitations. but the fact that it has been researched at all puts it ahead of most apps in the market. It is best thought of as a support tool rather than a replacement for therapy. For someone who wants a low-pressure way to practice mental health skills, or who needs something during the gap before they can access professional care, it may be genuinely useful. Another app worth knowing about is Wysa. Wysa takes a similar approach to Woebot, using CBT along with dialectical behavior therapy, which is called DBT, and mindfulness-based techniques. DBT is particularly focused on helping people manage intense emotions, tolerate distress, and improve relationships, so it adds a slightly different dimension to what Wysa offers compared to apps that focus purely on CBT. Wysa has been used in workplace wellness programs and in some clinical settings. Like Woebot, it is designed to provide support, not to replace a licensed clinician. For some users, the combination of conversational interaction and guided exercises may feel more flexible and practical than a traditional self-help workbook. There is also a newer app called Flourish that has been getting some attention lately. Flourish focuses on emotional support, habit tracking, coping tools, and features that connect users with peers. The company says its approach has been evaluated in research studies, which is encouraging, but I would describe it honestly as a platform with emerging evidence rather than a proven standard of care. It is worth watching as the evidence develops, but apply the same careful evaluation you would to any new player in this space. Look for peer-reviewed studies, transparent methods, and independent validation. And speaking of careful evaluation, let me give you a general word of caution about the AI mental health app market as a whole. It has grown very quickly over the past several years, quickly enough that quality varies enormously. Some apps have been criticized for weak privacy protections, unclear data policies, or marketing claims that go far beyond what the evidence supports. There have also been documented concerns about chatbots responding inappropriately to vulnerable users, including users who were expressing distress or crisis-level needs. The most responsible thing I can tell you is this: treat any AI mental health app as a tool, not an authority. If an app is making strong claims about what it can do, but cannot point to credible evidence, that is a warning sign. You are allowed to be cautious. Now let us shift to a different area: early detection. This is where things get scientifically fascinating and also where the ethical conversations get complicated. Researchers have been asking a question that sounds almost science fiction-like when you first hear it. Can AI notice that someone is struggling before the person themselves fully recognizes it? Can technology detect the early signs of a mental health crisis before it becomes obvious? The answer, based on current research, is maybe. In some controlled settings, the early results have been genuinely interesting. Here's the thinking. When someone is developing depression, or going through a manic episode, or experiencing the early stages of a mental health crisis, there are often subtle changes in how they communicate. The words they choose shift, the rhythm and pace of their speech may change, their sentences might become shorter or more fragmented, their writing may become more negative or more abstract. The patterns are there, often before the person or the people around them would consciously notice. Researchers have been studying whether AI can pick up on those signals. Studies have explored whether AI can detect patterns associated with depression, bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, autism spectrum disorder, and even suicidal thinking, all from analyzing speech, word choice, pacing, and other linguistic signals. And some of these studies have shown promising results in research contexts. But I want to be honest about the gap between a promising research result and a reliable real-world tool. A model that performs impressively in a carefully controlled study can still fail to generalize across different populations, different languages, different cultural contexts, different life circumstances. What works in a university research dataset may not work the same way for someone from a different background, speaking a different dialect and describing their distress in a completely different way. For now, the most responsible use of this kind of technology is as a screening aid, something that might help a clinician know to take a closer look, not something that can replace a full clinical evaluation. There is also research being done on public social media. The idea is that AI could analyze publicly shared posts and detect warning signals, signs that someone might be at higher risk for depression or suicidal thinking, and then somehow connect those people to support sooner. In theory, that sounds like it could help people. In practice, it raises some very serious questions. Who is watching those posts? Who decides what counts as a warning sign? What happens if the algorithm is wrong? Which it will be, some percentage of the time. What are the privacy implications? and what happens when this kind of monitoring capability exists, who else might want access to it, and for what purposes. These are not hypothetical concerns. They are real questions that have to be answered before any system like this could be deployed responsibly at scale. The technology may get there. The ethics need to keep up. A similar note of caution applies to using AI with electronic health records. There is research suggesting that AI can identify patterns in health data that are associated with future mental health concerns, especially when multiple data sources are combined. That work is interesting and worth following. But again, high performance in a research dataset does not guarantee real-world reliability, and these systems will need careful, independent testing before they are trusted in everyday clinical care. Okay, now let us talk about risks, because this is the part that I think a lot of coverage glosses over, and I do not want to do that. There are real benefits to AI in mental health, and there are real risks, and understanding both is what helps you make good decisions. The first and most important risk to understand is privacy. Mental health conversations can include some of the most sensitive, personal information a human being will ever share. What has happened to you, how you feel about yourself, what you are afraid of, what you cannot tell the people in your life. When you put that into an app, you are trusting that app with something extraordinarily personal. Some apps take that trust seriously. They are transparent about their policies, they give you control over your data, and they have clear answers to questions like, what do you collect? How long do you keep it? Do you share it with third parties? Do you use it to train your AI models? Other apps are vague, broad, or evasive about those same questions. Some have privacy policies that are written in a way that makes it very hard to understand what you are actually agreeing to. Before you use any AI mental health tool, before you type your first message, read the privacy policy. Look for clear and specific language. Avoid tools that collect more data than they need, that are vague about sharing practices, or that reserve the right to use your sensitive conversations for purposes you would not be comfortable with. If the policy reads like it was designed to confuse rather than inform, that is a problem. Your mental health history is not marketing data. The second major risk is bias. AI systems learn from data. If the data they were trained on does not reflect the full diversity of the people who might use the tool will work better for some people than others. In mental health, that disparity can be serious. The way depression shows up in a 60-year-old woman who grew up in rural Mississippi is not the same as how it might appear in a 25-year-old man who grew up in South Korea. The language people use to describe distress varies enormously across cultures, ages, and backgrounds. A system trained predominantly on data from one population may miss warning signs, misunderstand context, or generate unhelpful guidance for users who look different from the training data. Developers and buyers of these tools need to be asking hard questions about where the data came from and whether the tools have been tested across genuinely diverse populations. And as users, you have every right to ask those questions too. The third risk is over-reliance. This is probably the most common way that AI mental health tools cause harm in everyday situations, not through dramatic failures, but through gradual substitution. Someone starts using a chatbot for support, finds it helpful, and over time begins using it as their primary or only source of mental health support. Or an organization deploys an AI tool and begins to view it as a justification for reducing access to human services. The best role for AI is to extend care, not replace it. A chatbot can help you practice coping skills. It can help you stay organized and consistent with mental health habits. It can provide structure during a rough patch when nothing else is available. But it cannot provide the full depth of a genuine therapeutic relationship. It cannot read the room. It cannot notice that what you are saying does not match how you are actually doing. It cannot hold you accountable the way another human being can. And when things get truly serious, it is not what you need. The fourth risk is the lack of regulatory oversight. Most AI mental health apps do not go through the same kind of rigorous testing and approval process that prescription medications or medical devices do. That means you are largely on your own when it comes to evaluating whether a product is trustworthy. Quality varies enormously in this market. Some tools are carefully designed and backed by real research. Others are polished products with weak evidence and very good marketing. The field is moving toward better standards, but it is not there yet, which means you must be your own advocate. All right, now I want to get to the question that I think a lot of you have been waiting for. What is the actual difference between AI and a real therapist? Where is the line? I want to answer this directly and honestly. because I think the framing of AI versus therapist can sometimes obscure what is really a more nuanced picture. AI is genuinely useful for a specific set of things. It is useful for support between therapy sessions, for staying connected to coping skills and mental health habits in the time between appointments. It is useful for learning and practicing techniques like cognitive behavioral therapy, the same way a book or a workbook is useful, but more interactive and personalized. It is useful for journaling and mood tracking, for building self-awareness over time. It is useful for getting basic mental health information, for understanding what depression or anxiety or burnout actually is, and it is particularly valuable as a bridge for people who are waiting to access professional care or who live in areas where access is limited, or who cannot afford frequent sessions and want something to lean on in between. There is real and genuine value in all of that. I do not want to dismiss it. But here is where the line is. AI is not the right resource when you are in a mental health crisis. It is not the right resource when you are having thoughts of suicide or self-harm. It is not equipped to manage medication. It cannot provide a formal diagnosis. And it cannot do the work that happens in serious trauma treatment or in the care of a severe mental illness. For those situations, the depth and judgment and presence of a trained human professional is not optional. It is essential. I want to be really direct here. If you are in a mental health crisis right now, or if you have been having thoughts of suicide, please do not rely on an app. Call or text 988. That is the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline in the United States. It is free. It is confidential. It is available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Real human beings are there to help you. Please save that number, 988. Let me give you some practical guidance for using AI mental health tools responsibly, because I know that after everything I have just said, you might be wondering, okay, but what should I actually do? First, look for evidence before you trust any tool. Choose apps that can point to peer-reviewed research or credible clinical testing, not just testimonials, not just a press release. Actual research that has been reviewed by independent experts. If a tool cannot point to that, be cautious. Second, read the privacy policy before you start, not after. Before, make sure you understand what data is being collected, how it is stored, whether it is shared, and whether you can delete it. If the policy is vague or confusing, that is a signal. Third, use these tools as a bridge, not a destination. They work best when they are part of a broader care plan, when there is a human professional somewhere in the picture, even if access is limited. Let AI supplement your care. Do not let it substitute for it. Fourth, you do not need to overshare to get value. You usually do not have to provide your full personal history or deeply identifying information to benefit from these tools. Give yourself permission to use them somewhat guardedly. Fifth, save the crisis resources before you need them. Put 988 in your phone right now. Make it easy to find. And if a situation ever feels urgent or dangerous, that is the resource to use, not an app. Sixth, be skeptical of any tool that claims it can diagnose you. AI can identify patterns, it can flag things worth paying attention to, it can help you track and reflect on your own mental health over time. But a diagnosis is a clinical judgment that requires a qualified professional who knows you. An app cannot do that. Let me close with this. The reason AI has attracted so much attention in mental health is legitimate. The access problem is real. The shortage of providers is real. The financial and geographic and stigma-related barriers to care are real. And if AI can help fill some of those gaps, if it can help someone feel less alone at 2 in the morning, or stay connected to their coping skills between appointments, or bridge the wait time before they can get into care, that is worth taking seriously. The technology is improving, the research is maturing, and the conversation in the field has gotten more serious about ethics, about privacy, about making sure these tools actually help the people they are intended for. That is progress, but it is progress that requires all of us to stay clear-eyed, to ask good questions, to hold developers accountable, to make sure that the existence of an AI tool does not become an excuse to reduce investment in human care. And most of all, to remember that in mental health, the relationship between a person and someone who genuinely understands them, a real human therapist, counselor, or provider, is not something technology can fully replicate. AI can be a powerful support. It can be a useful bridge. It can help people in real and meaningful ways. But it works best when it is in service of people, not just products. If you found this podcast useful, give us a like and follow us. Leave us your comments. If you want the full written guide with all the tool comparisons and step-by-step instructions, head over to AI4everyone.ai. The link will be in the show notes. And while you are there, subscribe to our free newsletter. Every week we cover one AI topic in plain English. No jargon, no hype, just practical stuff you can actually use. This episode was written by humans and AI, read by an AI voice. Thanks for listening to the Simple AI Guide. Join me for the next episode.